Golan Heights, Israel. Things are currently calm here, but it's difficult to know for how long that will remain the case. The border with Syria remains unpredictable, and the days of Assad's regime look numbered. The region is once again being closely watched by the Israeli army, who are desperate to ensure that the events of early summer will not be repeated. In May and June, hundreds of Palestinians tried to enter Israeli territory. Warning shots were fired by the army, but the Palestinians didn't take any notice. Israel overreacted to the non-violent invasion, and the result left many dead and injured. Since then, the situation has intensified. The release of hundreds of Hamas terrorists has put the army on red alert. A recent kidnapping of Israeli soldiers has exacerbated the fear in the barracks. This is one of the army bases, which has the task of controlling Israel's northeastern borders. After the previous martial behavior of the radical Hamas terrorists, Israel fears extensive fire. The soldiers know a lot about technical requirements, and they are in constant contact with the units on the borders. We anticipate events that may be a threat, and we check where there may be a possible ambush. The moment we see a collection of people, we immediately mobilize our forces. We must be ready for anything. Every movement is captured by the cameras on the high security fences. What these young men have in mind is unclear, but immediately the mobile units on the border are mobilized. Army spokesman ARIY SHALICAR claims Israel is under threat from jihadists and is surrounded by potential followers of the Holy War. Of course, we must be prepared for any scenario. This is a difficult task, because Israel faces threats on several borders. In the north, we have Hezbollah, the de facto government in Lebanon. In Syria, we have a regime that is massacring its own people and also sends its people to our borders. In the south, things are not easy either. In Eilat, terrorists have killed innocent people. More than 1,000 Israeli civilians were killed during the Second Intifada. And because of this, we established a security fence. The situation has improved, but caution is still necessary. It's a formidable journey along Israel's threatened borders. These walls run for 30 kilometers, close to vulnerable areas like Jerusalem. Since the construction of the 790-kilometer security fence, the infiltration of suicide bombers has dropped to almost zero. Here at the Western Wall, in Jerusalem's Old City, many Israelis come to pray for the cleansing of sins and for peace. However, a possible two-state solution still remains a long way off. Many people are also burdened with their own problems. Israel is in a turbulent state. Every day, Jews and Arabs live side by side in mutual contempt. The Swiss-born psychologist CARLO STRENGER has written a book about the inner turmoil of Israeli society. He describes Israel as a country that is going through one of the worst crises since its inception. The peace process is deadlocked, and the country is increasingly isolated. I think it's very difficult for people abroad to understand how people in Israel have been traumatized by the First and Second Intifadas. In the first Intifada, 1,000 Israelis died, and they were again traumatized when Israel withdrew from the Gaza Strip. Then the Palestinians fired thousands of rockets at Israeli towns. All this has led to a paradoxical situation. 70% of voters think that the two-state solution could bring peace. The problem here is, at the same time, many people think that this is not feasible. This is because the trust needed to reconcile with the Palestinians has been lost. The power struggle within the Palestinian camp is also a cause for frustration. Human rights activist BASSEMEID is surprisingly self-critical about the political mistakes of the past.
We the Palestinians are so specialized on losing opportunities. We became so specialized on that, to lose opportunities. I think that each day the negotiations will delay, we the Palestinians are going to be the losers. So I prefer to make it today before tomorrow without any kind of conditions. It's so stupid when a weak person are putting conditions on a strong person. And this is unfortunately the map today between the Israelis and the Palestinians.
Driving through the Negev desert leads to another border area where dangers loom. Ahead lies the new settlement of Shlomit in the area near Egypt and Gaza. Many Israelis have been drawn here, and a new Jewish community is thriving. Yet more and more Arab Bedouins have taken possession of Israeli land here, and the people here have to brave a growing risk of terrorism. But resident Kobe Avivo does not speak of fear and terror, but of happiness. For him and his small family, there is no better place to live. It's actually pretty calm here. We have no special instructions from the army on how we should behave. We fear nothing. There is only a small army post here. But that means the government believes that things will continue to stay quiet. His family are one of 8 who have settled in Shlomit. Soon there will be a school and a synagogue, they say. They see themselves as Zionist pioneers, but though they deny it, the potential dangers they face are hard to ignore. Since the change of power in Cairo, the situation on the border has intensified significantly. In mid-August, the south of Israel saw terrorist attacks in the area around Eilat. Gunmen thought to have come from the Gaza Strip through Egypt's Sinai desert killed 9 Israeli civilians and soldiers. Further north, another border town, Sderot, is also feeling under increased threat from outside attack. From a hill on the border, you can just see Gaza. Concerns are growing in Israel over the recent release of hundreds of Hamas terrorists in exchange for Gilad Shalit. Among them were a number of mass murderers. Many of those who were freed are celebrated as Palestinian heroes and have sworn revenge on Israel. The people of the border town are nervous. At a police station lie the remains of missiles, thousands of which have descended on the town over the years. The fears of the average Israeli are not irrational. To ask, why do you have a fear of suicide attacks? This can only be asked by someone that has never witnessed a suicide attack and narrowly escaped it. The population in Tel Aviv is tired of the constant military threat, which is not something necessarily obvious at first glance. Israel is investing huge sums in its safety, but it is more politically isolated than ever before. The country has lost two key allies, Turkey and Egypt. Recent protests have also unsettled the country internally. The lack of solidarity here is evident. Along the coastline lies Lebanon, a neighbour Israel has never ceased to be suspicious of. The sea is secured with underwater barriers. Time and again, the Israeli Navy uncovers the smuggling of weapons here. The most recent discovery was in March on a freighter called the Victoria. 50 tons of weapons were found, which included mortar shells, rocket launchers, and ammunition. The weapons came from Iran and were destined for Hamas and Hezbollah. This is Rosh Hanikra, the gateway to Lebanon. Only the UN can pass through this border. The Israelis and Hezbollah use this place to exchange prisoners and their dead. In Israel, they fear that the northern frontier could once again become a war zone.
I fear
that Hezbollah could again resort to violence in order to liberate themselves, amongst other domestic issues. Assad is also under a lot of pressure in Syria. To avoid a civil war taking place, Assad could start a new war with Israel. This would relieve the pressure internally and also be in the interest of Hezbollah. The Arab Revolution is knocking at Israel's door. This increasingly tense and isolated country is looking at a future shrouded in uncertainty. GABI CONIEL, who lives in the Golan Heights, says that for Israel to continue to exist in peace, he would be willing to make big compromises.
If I will believe that the agreement between Israel and Syria will be a true agreement and a true peace, if I need to leave my home and find a new place, a new home, build a new home, not in the Golan Heights, somewhere else, in Israel, I believe that I will do it. I will pay this tax for true peace.